Thank you all so much for being here. This is really exciting always to host these moments where we've got our artist talks. These are our favorite nights when we get to be in front of the beautiful art and also get to hear from the artists. So we've got Kyle Boen with us tonight. He has driven up from Chattanooga, lived here until a couple of years ago.
That's right.
And now with his husband Cameron is in Chattanooga, and we're so glad that you all are here showcasing this beautiful art. I know you all have noticed Kyle's art is here and then also in this section too. So some of these beautiful landscapes are his. My name's Hunter, and I, along with Bradley, wave, and Amanda, hey Amanda, and Stacy, own Richland Fine Art, and we're just really glad to welcome you here. So glad you're here. We took this gallery over a year ago, and it's been a really fun journey to kind of curate some new life and some new artists into it. So if you have not signed our guest book, just put your email on there. We'd love to let you know about other kind of artist events that we have coming up. Stacy, one of our owners, is also one of our artists, so you'll see some of his art through the gallery as well. Kyle, thank you so much for being here. And it's kind of like the first question we're just interested in is your artist beginning. Where did it begin for you? What was the genesis of your life as an artist?
So, I mean, I've kind of always grown up doing artwork. Like I was explaining to Stacy, my grandfather was a graphic designer, and my dad also kind of followed in that suit a little bit. So I feel like I've kind of grown up and come by it honestly. And it was something that I've always just enjoyed releasing myself into, like when I was stressed or when I was like angry or when I was happy, excited, whatever it may be, I always channeled it into some form of artwork. And, you know, growing up, my parents never really was like, you're really good at that. You should like turn this into something. It was just something that I always just did for myself and found joy in it. And, you know, growing up, I've had mentors that I've looked up to in the art world that have said, you know, if you find something that you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. So I kept going back. I was like, what am I passionate about? Like, what do I do? And it was like, I've asked myself those questions, like even in the middle of doing a painting or a drawing or something. And I, you know, look down sometimes and I'm like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm passionate about. Like painting, creating things that other people can relate to and, you know, feel emotion that I'm feeling. So it's just, it's been very empowering for me. And I quit my corporate job about 2 years ago to pursue artwork full time. And I haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. That's an exciting moment, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Was that scary? Was that, how did,
absolutely,
kind
100%.
Of easy, yeah, all the things. Right?
Like I was like, okay, do I do this? Because again, growing up, my parents were very conservative. They're like, you know, you need to work a 9 to 5, you need to have a 401k, you need to do all these things. And so that was instilled in my head as a young age. So I guess I was at a point where it was during COVID and I was like, you know what? I am not happy doing this. And you can ask Cameron, like I would come home sometimes and I would just be very just angry. Yeah. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I like wasting my life for? And I was like, you know what? I'm at a point in my life where I can either stay on this path or I can take a journey and do something that I've never done before and see where it takes me. And the beginning of this year, we sat down and wrote a manifestation of what we wanted out of life. And I wrote that I wanted to be in art galleries. I wanted to be doing art full time. Yeah. And here I am.
That's wonderful. That's
amazing.
So
there's power in that.
I love that. Yes. Manifestation. I love it. So you mentioned some of the people that inspire you and some of your mentors. Just kind of talk a little bit about them. Who inspires you? Who are some of the people that have been a part of your journey to where you are now?
So probably one of my biggest influences and persons that's always lifted me up, I did take an art class from, I was explaining this to Stacy too, from a lady from church when I was like 12 years old. She was like, she had a snuff can in her art studio.
That sounds like a good church lady.
Oh, absolutely. She was painting on saw blades and all this other stuff. So, you know, she was the person that always was like, you know what, you can do this. And I always think about her. And I actually posted something on my Facebook the other day. And one of the little kids that was in the class with me, he posted, he said, Miss Sue would be so proud of you. So that really hit home for me and made me it gave me chills almost. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's really. Is she still around? Has
she
she
is
been able?
not. She
Okay.
passed away about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, we've got two of your styles represented
mhm.
tonight. Are there other styles that tell us about kind of they're very different, right?
Right.
And the evolution of how you've kind of determined what are the styles you're painting in right now. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm kind of all over the board when it comes to artwork. I do pen and inks as well. I That's kind of what I started out doing other than painting. I would do a lot of stippling and cross hatching and things like that with barns and just create houses and things like that. But yeah, my main focus right now is abstracts and oil paintings, landscapes, just because they give me two different feelings. Like abstracts I love because I can just go out to a large canvas like this one behind you and just like release anything that I have, whether it's anger, happiness, sadness, whatever it is. I just turn my music on and I just go to town and I have no clue where my piece is going to
Yeah.
go. Kind of the same with my landscapes. When I do a landscape, I will, a lot of artists will sketch it out. They'll, gesso it out and kind of outline what they're doing. I don't do that. I start with like a piece in the background, like whether it be a tree or a mountain, and I work my way out. So whatever materializes from that is just what's in my head.
Yeah.
So there's never any like picture that I'm looking at to go from or anything like that. So
what kind of inspires those lands? Is it some of the area that you're living in now, or how do you get inspiration for those
I think
landscapes?
for me, my inspiration comes from my music that I listen to. I've always been drawn to like sunsets and morningscapes, like the dew and the frost in the fields and things like that. And I feel like when I listen to music, it kind of pulls that out of me. So I can see it in my head when I'm listening to a certain piece of music, and it just takes me there. So yeah, it's just whatever.
Are you a musician as well, or just
I used to
lover
play
of
piano
music?
years ago, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your color palettes too. There's kind of a color palette we notice in your landscapes, a color palette we notice in your abstracts. Tell us about that.
So my abstracts, I stay with a neutral palette just because I'm just drawn to neutrals. It's my favorite color palette for abstracts because you can pair it with anything. You can pair it with traditional. You can pair it with modern. So it's a very versatile color palette to work with. My landscapes, I try and keep them more on the muted side. Like I said, doing sunrises or sunsets, things in those patterns. Something that you can picture yourself like you're looking at a window and seeing that in front of you. Because a lot of times you have pieces of artwork in your home, and I mean, you might gaze at it and you might stare at it once in a while, but if I want to invoke somebody to want to be where my painting takes them. Like I always say this when I post something, I'm like, if I could have my own personal heaven, it would be my landscapes.
Yeah.
So
I know that's beautiful. So you're able to create that. That's beautiful and kind of give voice to that. So you've talked about music. Are there other things that really inspire your paintings currently that you kind of get inspiration from? Is it principally music?
Principally music. A lot of times I'll go through the internet or I see something online, whether it's a line in something, the way a line or a shadow hits something in a certain way. This piece right here, Peaky Blinder, it just kind of, I took that element from the shadowing. I think it was a picture of somebody had posted blinds from a window on a page, and I was like, I really like the shadowing of that, so I kind of created my own piece from that inspiration.
Where did the names come from? How do you name art? I'm always curious.
It's so funny because a lot of people will like go and create intricate names for all their art pieces and really think about them. I don't.
Yeah.
A lot of times whatever music I'm listening to, it might be a song title at that time when I'm creating that piece that kind of evokes that I use a lot of times for a title piece.
That's really neat. Are there any colors you hate? We always kind of ask, like, any colors that are I never use this color. I hate this color. I avoid this.
Not really. I'm open to doing color. So if somebody ever wanted to commission like a hot pink and fuchsia and like purple like piece, I would be open to it just because I like the challenge. But I mean, neutrals are my safe wheelhouse, so that's what I like to stick to. But I always like a challenge. So,
do you have kind of? Is there something that you're wanting to get to in your art, or kind of a new direction you're experimenting with at the moment, or?
I always, so anytime I do, other than my landscapes, my abstracts, I kind of always go with a theme. This one has been, I mean, obviously it's been neutrals and lines and, you know, adding elements that are kind of unique to its own piece. I feel like the next series that I do, I want to go in a completely different direction with it just to try new things. And I think that's what makes artists so great is that we like to try and we like to create and bring people into new worlds that we experience. And it's like we go into this realm mentally and we want other people to see what's in that realm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to try different things.
When do you paint? Is it certain times of the day that inspire you? Like, what is your kind of a day of painting? What does that day look like?
So, and this is what I was explaining to somebody earlier. I never go into my studio angry or negative because I feel like taking negativity into a space, other than abstracts, I think sometimes you can take anger into it and it can create something beautiful. But for the most part, I try and have a positive mindset because I want people to feel that positivity in a piece that I create and they feel that love that I put into it. So that's always important to me when I create. So yeah.
Are there kind of any special things in your studio or painting space that are really intentionally there? It's like, tell us a little bit about your space. What do you have there?
So for my abstracts, I mean, because they're larger pieces, I mostly paint out of my garage just because it can house everything. So it's nothing really special there.
Yeah.
For my landscapes, I have a really dark room that I paint in. It's almost black. And I have leather chairs. I have like very soft light. I have an old antique clock that goes off. I have a decanter with bourbon in it.
Yeah.
And I listen to movie scores from, I mean, gosh, you name it, I listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's a very
really
like Ralph Lauren-esque like space that I create in.
Yeah.
And
where your paintings would fit perfect. It's like, so there's a spot ready for whatever you're creating.
So yeah, I like to get in that mindset and just like kind of in my little shell.
Yeah.
And that's what I was explaining, like seeing my landscapes out here on a white wall is so different than seeing it in my space, like on the easel.
Right.
So it's great.
It is interesting seeing. We've had actually before the show, we had a lot of your work in this dark room back here, and it really we always kind of feel like everything looks better in that room,
right?
Like against that gray color.
Yeah.
But it changes really what things look like just depending on what kind of walls they're in and what kind of lighting and space they're in.
Absolutely.
Any questions from anybody here tonight?
I have a question about the name, so I'm glad that you
Yeah.
I feel like for someone who's not an artist, I'm like, how did you get there?
Yeah. So again, that goes back to a lot of times when the music that I'm listening to, I take inspiration from that song title. So it's whenever I finish that piece, I look at what song is playing. So I will see that and I'll use that as my title piece because that piece of music inspired that piece of artwork. So.
Do you, when you're doing abstracts, do you finish them kind of in one, I guess, is the right word, but like one tip, like you come back and forth, kind of like look at it, I don't know, like maybe that's something else or.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I can do a piece and I can finish it the same day. Sometimes I will add elements to it and I will mentally get blocked sometimes and I don't want to continue creating on that space with a mental block. So I walk away from it and I step back and I study it. And then I'm like, okay, well, what can I put here and what can I put there to, you know, complete the thought that I want to invoke? So I step back from that at that time.
How do you know, we were talking earlier about, like for me, it's like obviously, you know, everyone's probably painted a little bit, like I never knew when to like stop painting, so like everything And it's like, how do you know when to stop and go, okay, I'm done. Like, this is it. I'm not going to touch it
And I just had this conversation with Stacy a second ago. That is something as a Virgo and a Type A personality that I have had to struggle with. And artwork isn't just like creating something; it's also a teaching tool. It's taught me to be patient with myself, to know when to stop and look at something and be like, okay, you know what? This isn't going to be perfect the way you want it to be perfect. This could be perfect already as is for somebody else. So at that time, I need to step back and realize that the more I add to it, the more I'm actually taking away from the piece. So,
yeah.
So you're so clearly driven and inspired by music. And it sounds like you kind of use that as an accessory to paintings. Have you ever started with a song to canvas?
absolutely.
Okay.
One of my favorite movie scores, I don't know if this is a very small indie film. It's called The Spitfire Grill. It was one of James Horner's first composed movie scores. And I love listening to that movie score because I don't know what it is about his instrumentals in that score, but it really, I listen to that one a lot of times when I'm painting because it just inspires a lot of just emotion from me. I guess growing up watching the movie with family and events and just time together with the people that I love, that's just those memories that I have with it. So it's definitely one of my favorites.
Like you lean into kind of all aspects of just like the beauty of the art world, whether it be like fashion or home living and lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like getting into the art realm of painting leads you into those other aspects of kind of blending that whole spectrum, or did you kind of fall into one and say, I'm going to branch out and bring in painting aspect into this?
I think, I definitely think painting and art has helped me branch out into those other categories. I've always been interested in interior design as well when I was little. My mom would kill me if she was here. But she is very much a clutter person. She collects things and will not let them go. So, and anytime they would go on a cruise or go out of town somewhere, I would always rearrange their house and clean and decorate for them and be like, look what I did to your house.
Did she like it?
She did,
Okay.
but it would stay that way for about a week. So, I mean, I think growing up, and especially my aunt, she's always been that interior decorator type, and I kind of get that from her just growing up and being around her. So that's always inspired me as well. So I love meshing those two worlds together because I feel like art and interior design can create such a cohesive and calming environment when done correctly. So I want everybody to experience that and know that environment. So that's why I like meshing those together.
What do you do when the name of the song you're listening to is something completely opposite to what you're painting? Do you just take one look at it and name it, or what do you do?
Sometimes I will, so it'll be a few songs that I listen to during that creation of that piece. And there will be one song that I'm listening to, I'm like, that doesn't fit right. And then I go back and listen and see the other songs that I've listened to, and I was like, that one. So.
Well, and I've got a question, but first off, the church gave us Whitney, and the church has given us you.
Yeah, that's right.
Prayer or say thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, do you prefer to be painting or on air, or do you do that, or is it basically just?
I prefer to be in my little studio space just because I feel like it's a safe space for me. I know where my paints are. I know my routine that I go to when I go in there. I know some artists will go to galleries and paint. You paint here in the gallery, and that's your safe space, and that's where you feel comfortable. Some people like that. I'm very much an introvert a lot of times, so being up here talking in front of you is very scary for me. So yeah, I like to retreat into that and just channel into my own world. And a lot of times Cameron will have to come in there and be like, he'll bring me coffee or he'll bring me lunch and say lunch is ready or something. And I have to kind of wake myself up out of that world and, kind of come back to reality. So
That's awesome.
did you ever get into, or like, like different kind of textures or like sculpting? Like, is there any other kind of art that you've ever been interested in besides just?
I've always been interested in pottery. My mom's done a few pottery pieces before, and she told me how fantastic it was, and so I'm kind of interested in doing that. Whether it's like making vases or bowls or plates or whatever that is, that's always been an interest of mine to try.
And I love the texture on this one landscape, kind of the center. If you all notice the center piece on this wall,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of texture to it.
Yeah, that is actually an antique floral painting that I repurposed and created that landscape on top of. I
That's
didn't
neat.
want to, like, I wanted to pay homage to the painting that was already there, but I didn't necessarily like the floral print
Yeah.
itself. So in honoring the piece, I just painted a landscape on top of it so you could still see that it was a floral piece behind it. So.
That's really neat.
So is it something that you've seen before, or taken a picture, or just you dreamed up?
I just dreamed it up. Yeah, it's like, so like I was saying, I start with like something in the background and then work my way up, and it's just whatever the music or my head, like, I feel like they kind of mesh together whenever I'm creating. It's so weird to explain, and I don't know if like you can comprehend what I'm trying to evoke, but they just mesh together, and it just kind of takes control of my hand and my brush, honestly, and I just retreat into it, and I just say, okay, well, this is where you're taking me. So, and when I finish a piece, I literally stand back, and it's weird because I feel like God is like talking to me. He's like, this is what I put in your heart to give to the world. And I guess that's why I say, like, that's why I want, like, if I was to die today, I want my landscapes to be my heaven, because I feel like he's given that image to me to give to everybody else. So that's very special to me.
Love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And everybody grab more wine. I know this is where it's such a gift to be able to hear from the artists and see their work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And everything is for sale.